Let's get more now and go live to Peter Mathews, Professor of Political Science at Cypress College in Los Angeles. Always great to see you, Professor.
Good to see you both. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, yes, breaking news and gut-wrenching statements. So we just saw George Floyd's daughter, and we've heard from other family members some emotional statements. It's been announced. How do you think the family are going to respond to this sentence?
Well, that's probably that they feel it's better than the sentence that it could have been less if it was less than this. And I think that 22 years is quite a bit. But on the other hand, look at the crime itself and the type of murder charge that he had. It could have been more severe, certainly, and we'll have to see how they actually come out and react. It's very difficult to predict, but they might feel, two ways about it. We'll see.
Hasn't shown much remorse, has he?
No, not at all. And that's another thing that should have been taken into consideration. And the sentence could have been far more strict and firmer than what it was. And I think people will be talking about that and wondering if this will be a repeat once again with sentences that are not fully equitable toward the charge itself.
Professor, the latest COVID update in the US, we're hearing that most of the deaths at the moment are for people that have been unvaccinated, and there's also a call to have younger people vaccinated. What is the update?
That is absolutely true. It's almost a tale of two Americas. The more rural areas and the southern states where far fewer people are vaccinated have much higher rates of infection, especially with what's going on with the Delta variant and now Delta Plus that's coming in. That variant is very much spreadable. It's very infectious. And if you find the places that it's hitting the hardest, it's younger people who are not vaccinated. Between 18 and 29 years old, only 38% are vaccinated. Look at people over 65. That's about 80% that are vaccinated. So you have a big difference in geography, in income, and also insurance. Those who are uninsured, as far as health insurance goes, are also less likely to get vaccinated. That's a real tragedy in the United States. We have millions of people that are not insured with health insurance, and that's a big problem in this particular crisis.
Well, speaking of the word crisis, it's a very dramatic day today, Professor, with what's going on in Florida and the building. It's an awful story.
It's a terrible story, and look at how many people died in that, and just the the infrastructure. That's a private building, but our federal infrastructure, our public infrastructure, and even some of our private buildings are deteriorating and are not built up to standard, not regulated like they should. And this will occur once again. It's also occurred with bridges falling down in the United States and other areas that have to be rebuilt. And so it's so tragic to see this happen to so many innocent people. And, I was very glad to see the Australian embassy was concerned about how many Australians might be there, but also a lot of other people that have died in that. It's a terrible thing.
Absolutely devastating scenes. We'll be live to our reporter in the US as well, Annalise Nielsen. But this week, President Joe Biden pledged to go after illegal gun dealers and basically boost federal funding and support for local law enforcement, as we're seeing those homicide rates spiking in large cities. What has the response been?
Well, it's a small step in the right direction. The problem is we need to have much stricter gun regulation. We need to ban assault weapons. We need to have background checks. There's another problem. He's saying the gun dealers who are illegally selling guns to people without background checks, where they're required to have background checks. And that's got to stop, said Biden. He also is allowing to take about $1 billion out of the COVID relief fund and put it into law enforcement to hire more community-based police and to have better training for police and to help fight crime in that sense, community-oriented policing. So that should help. But the problem is that the guns are still there. They're the instruments of death. Let's look at the countries where there are not that widespread ownership of guns. And you find far less murders and killings and homicides and even suicides because you can't really, kill as easily with a knife. It's time that America gets serious about this and really regulate the weapons that are just weapons of mass destruction, if you think about it.
How can you limit the impact of the NRA? Like how does a government do that? It seems like every time we get to this point or there's been a major drama, there's a lot of talk, and obviously this is a small step in the right direction. But how is it possible, Professor?
Well, I think that we have to regulate not just the NRA, but we have to regulate the gun manufacturers. They're the ones who want to sell these merchants of death. They want to sell the guns in the United States. They want to advertise them. They want to make it a glamorous thing, and they're selling them around the world. Those are the guys, the gun manufacturers who fund the NRA, in addition to the individual funding. They have to be brought under control, and that's going to take a real massive, demonstration of the public against this, and then get the Congress members to pass stricter gun control legislation. The members of Congress will not act until they're sure they're going to be defeated in the next election by the American voters. The voters have to get involved with this. Moms and dads and brothers and sisters of all these victims. Horrendous carnage in this country has to stop.
All right, plenty to talk about, Professor, but we do have to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for your time. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
See you next weekend. Thank you so much, Professor. Coming up.